When people show you who they are, believe them. What we've seen from Blake Lively is her showing.
The $300 million gamble just went up in flames. Blake Lively thought she could silence the Mean Girl rumors once and for all, but her own legal team just handed her critics the matches. Instead of a massive payday, she is facing a PR nightmare that is tearing through Hollywood like a wildfire. The mask did not just slip, it was ripped off by the very receipts her side tried to hide from the public eye. Now the tables have turned so fast, it has left the entire industry reeling. This isn't just about a movie anymore, it is about a reputation that might be beyond saving. The silence from her camp is deafening, and the fallout is only just beginning to settle on the ruins of a carefully crafted image.
All deep down knew that Blake Lively was a mean girl.
By handing over an illegally obtained recording, Blake's legal team proved they were willing to cross any line to win. It made them look untrustworthy and suggested they had no actual evidence to support their claims if they had to resort to such tactics. When you have to break the law to find dirt on someone, it usually means the dirt doesn't actually exist. The move completely backfired when the studio demanded the entire tape be played in court rather than just the cherry-picked sections her lawyers wanted people to hear. They thought they had a trap, but they ended up walking right into one of their own making, and the fallout was caught on the record.
So do you feel free now to try everything? What is the next?
The lawyers tried to use a chopped-up segment where an executive mentioned there would be bodies when he was done, trying to make it sound like a threat. They wanted to paint a picture of an organized smear campaign designed to destroy Blake's life and career. It was a classic fear-mongering tactic used when the facts aren't on your side, but as soon as the full, unedited audio was heard, the entire narrative collapsed. It turned out the executive was simply talking about protecting his business and his employees from what he saw as an unfair legal attack. Context is everything in a courtroom, and Blake's team intentionally stripped it away.
Well,
Did
yeah.
you see the movie?
I did see the movie. But I mean,
we're going to give you a pop quiz.
there can be a pop quiz every minute of it.
Yeah.
It's a complicated pop quiz, though.
The full recording actually showed that Claire Ayub was the one doing almost 70% of the talking, constantly pushing for a negative quote. She was practically begging the executive to say something bad about Blake and Ryan Reynolds, but he didn't take the bait. Instead, he spent a significant amount of time talking about how much people genuinely love Justin Baldoni and what a great person he is to work with. The big evidence they brought to destroy Justin ended up being a glowing testimonial for his character. It was an embarrassing moment for the defense and another major win for Justin, who didn't even have to say a word to be vindicated.
If anyone's still a fan of Blake Lively, I think recheck your decision on that because she's not very nice to the common.
The desperation reached a fever pitch when the legal team started firing off federal subpoenas to every major tech company they could think of. They targeted AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and even Cloudflare, demanding every text, call log, and location record for anyone remotely associated with Justin. It was described as a sweeping government-style probe that far exceeded the limits of a normal civil case. This aggressive overreach didn't just annoy the companies involved, it signaled to the public that Blake's side was on a fishing expedition. They were looking for any scrap of information they could use to pivot the narrative away from the facts that were already hurting them.
Always known as somebody that was difficult to work with. Those rumors were always following.
Perhaps the most shocking part of the legal escalation was the targeting of small independent YouTube creators. One channel that received a legal threat reportedly had only 38 subscribers at the time. It is hard to imagine a more lopsided battle than a Hollywood superstar and her high-powered lawyers going after a tiny creator in federal court. This move was criticized by PR experts as being incredibly damaging to Blake's image. It made her look like a bully who was trying to silence even the smallest voices of criticism. When you start suing people with fewer followers than your local bakery, you have officially lost the plot and the public's respect.
The vast majority of it, she had 13 claims in her lawsuit, 10 have been dismissed, the big ones being all the claims for defamation and also the claims about...
The strategy was called excessive and damaging by experts who have seen many high-profile disputes play out. Instead of calming the waters, every move her team made seemed to turn the volume up on the controversy. It created a negative image that resonated far beyond the courtroom, painting a picture of a legal team that was out of control and desperate for a win at any cost. This kind of scorched earth policy rarely works in the age of social media, where people can see the bullying happening in real time. It turned a private dispute into a global conversation about privacy, proportionality, and the dark side of celebrity influence and power.
So interesting because you work with so many people and almost everybody's nice. And then there's Blake, who's she's totally different than everyone else.
Sorry.
While Blake's side was busy firing subpoenas at everyone, Justin Baldoni took a much more surgical approach by hiring Brian Friedman. Friedman is known in the industry as a lawyer who deals exclusively in facts and receipts rather than feelings and narratives. From the moment he stepped into the ring, he made it clear that they weren't going to hide or leak stories to friendly tabloids. He went straight for the documents that people couldn't argue with. He famously stated that since documents don't lie but people do, the truth would eventually come out under oath. It was a confident move that signaled he had the evidence to back up every single claim.
Still don't know that we won't have to go into court.
Sure.
I just know that for right now, it seems like détente. And then if they persist and they push to the limits, then we'll go to court. And then it's all on me. Then I'll be working harder than...
In a move that was truly unprecedented for a Hollywood feud, Justin's team launched a public website called lawsuitinfo.com. They didn't just tell people they had the truth. They uploaded a massive 168-page timeline for the entire world to read. This document contained emails and texts dating back to 2019, showing the very beginning of the project. It allowed the public to see the unedited communications before they could be twisted by PR teams. By being completely transparent, they took the power away from the gossip columns and put it back into the hands of the facts. It was a masterclass in modern crisis management.
Seen that, or some of the comments I see, or on the flip, they'll say that Blake sold her cut back to, and I was like, that's not how it works. You own the footage. Like, that's not how it, and people will say it so confidently. And they'll be like, yeah, because they bankrolled the movie. And I'm like, that's not how no. That's not how it works.
Right, but we just sit there quietly and
know.
let them think what they want. And, ultimately we're not going to, but Blake and Ryan are billionaires. I don't think they are.
The documents revealed that the project was Justin's baby from the very start, long before Blake ever got involved. Emails from April 2019 showed the author of the book, Colleen Hoover, telling Justin that he was the right person to bring her story to the big screen. He built the foundation of the movie from the ground up, only for a major star to come in later and try to claim total creative control. This context changed everything for the fans who had been told a different story. It proved that Justin wasn't an interloper in his own film. He was the architect who was being pushed out of the house he built by people with more fame.
To that point, and I'll make it worth their while because I'm going to spend a lot of money to make sure the studio is protected. But I don't.
One of the most hurtful stories that circulated was the accusation that Justin had fat-shamed Blake on set. Tabloids reported that he had asked her personal trainer about her weight, making her feel self-conscious as a new mother. At the time, the internet was ready to cancel him based on that story alone. It was the perfect narrative to fit the villain persona they were trying to build for him. But when the actual text messages were released, they told a story that was purely about safety and medical necessity. Justin wasn't looking for a reason to judge her. He was looking for a way to protect his own health and hers.
From the very start, this case was about somebody being wrongfully accused, and that's Justin.
Justin Baldoni isn't just winning the legal battle, he is winning the war of public perception. For months, he was the villain in a narrative that painted him as difficult and dismissive on the set of It Ends With Us. But a federal judge just dropped a hammer that crushed that story into dust. Out of 13 claims Blake brought forward, 10 have been dismissed, leaving her legal strategy in absolute tatters. Her attempt to claim lost earnings based on being dubbed a mean girl has backfired in the most spectacular way possible. It turns out that when you try to sue someone for telling the truth, the court has a funny way of making that truth even louder for everyone to hear.
Another, crisis in LA, and I'm here. So I don't think there's any coincidence. But my take on what the judge did was the judge simplified.
The truth was that Justin suffers from a very serious back injury that affects his daily life and his ability to lift heavy objects. Since the script required him to lift Blake in several scenes, he needed to know the weight to ensure he didn't drop her or permanently damage his own spine. It was a professional inquiry made for the safety of everyone on set. There was no malice or body shaming involved, just a man trying to do his job without ending up in a hospital bed. Seeing the cold, hard medical reality behind the accusation made the initial fat-shaming story look like a calculated and cruel fabrication.
When Claire Ayub kept pushing him about whether he was going to sue Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively, Steve basically just explained that he was going to protect his company.
The most damning part of the weight-shaming drama is that Blake reportedly knew about the back injury all along. Documents proved she had sent texts acknowledging his medical condition and why he was asking the question. Despite knowing the innocent truth, her side reportedly allowed the fat-shaming narrative to run wild in the media without correction. To let a man's reputation be dragged through the mud for something you know is a lie is a level of coldness that is hard to ignore. It wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a choice to remain silent while a colleague was being falsely accused of something truly disgusting. Even Ryan Reynolds couldn't stay out of the fray, and his involvement only added more fuel to the fire. Legal documents revealed that Ryan allegedly made a phone call to Justin that was so harsh the actor wouldn't even repeat the words to anyone but his wife. It seems the power couple was working in tandem to emotionally devastate Justin and push him out of the picture. They used their massive influence to create an environment where he felt isolated and attacked. When you have the biggest movie star in the world calling you up to say things too dark to repeat, it is clear that this was never just a professional disagreement. In the end, this case serves as a massive wake-up call for how we consume celebrity drama. It shows that a polished Instagram feed and a charming husband aren't enough to hide the truth when the receipts start dropping. Justin Baldoni survived a coordinated attempt to end his career because he kept the records and stayed focused on the facts. The mean girl narrative didn't win because, in a court of law, feelings don't carry the same weight as 168 pages of evidence. As the dust settles, it is clear that Blake Lively's attempt to rewrite history has only succeeded in making her past even more impossible to ignore. The evidence against her did not start in a courtroom. It started years ago in press junkets that are now resurfacing with a vengeance. Everyone remembers the infamous Little Bump interview where Blake made a journalist feel like she was invisible. Instead of a simple thank you, Blake turned her chair away and refused to make eye contact for the rest of the session. It was a cold, calculated display of power that left viewers feeling uncomfortable long before this current scandal broke. This wasn't an isolated incident or a bad day. It was a glimpse into a pattern of behavior that is finally being called out by the masses who are tired of the Hollywood entitlement. If you think the baby bump comment was bad, look at her behavior during the promotion of All I See Is You back in 2017. A reporter asked a standard professional question about her future acting goals, and Blake reacted with pure disgust. She aggressively cut him off and treated him like he hadn't even done his job, despite his insistence that he had watched her film. She even looked off camera at her team and announced they were going to give the man a pop quiz at the end of the interview. It was a humiliating display of condescension that treated a professional adult like a disobedient child. These clips are proof that the Mean Girl label isn't a conspiracy, it is a documented history. For years, fans gave her a pass because of her charm and her high-profile marriage, but that grace has officially run out. The entitlement she showed on the set of her latest project wasn't some new reaction to a difficult director, it was just who she has always been behind the scenes. The pattern was hidden in plain sight on the internet for anyone who cared to look, but now everyone is looking at once. People are starting to realize that the person they see on Instagram isn't the person who shows up to work. When someone shows you who they really are through their actions over a decade, you have to eventually believe them, no matter how much you like their fashion choices. The most damaging piece of evidence didn't come from a leaked video, but from Blake's own hand in a letter to the Producers Guild of America. She was desperate to be credited as a producer, not just an actor, and to get that title, she had to document every single thing she did on set. In her own words, she admitted to hiring and firing staff, moving filming locations to be closer to her house, and even rewriting parts of the script. She explicitly wrote that Justin Baldoni was not her boss or her employer, but merely a partner. This letter completely destroyed her public narrative that she was a helpless actress being mistreated by a controlling male director. She tried to play the role of the victim, while her own documents proved she was the one pulling all the strings. You can't claim you were being bullied by a director when you were simultaneously bragging to a guild about how you were managing the editing team and dictating the entire marketing strategy. The judge saw right through this contradiction, noting that her own testimony proved she had more control than she let on to the public. It is a level of hypocrisy that is hard for the average person to wrap their head around. She wanted the power of a boss, but the sympathy of an underdog, and in the end she walked away with neither and a legal bill to match. On April 2nd, the legal walls officially closed in when a federal judge used Blake's own statements to dismantle the majority of her lawsuit. The dismissal of the defamation claims was a massive blow because it meant the court didn't see the Mean Girl label as a baseless smear. If the court won't protect you from a label you helped create through your own documented actions, there isn't much left to fight for. Her legal team looked increasingly desperate as their main arguments fell apart one by one. Instead of backing down and doing damage control, they decided to double down on a strategy that would eventually lead them into illegal territory and even more public shame. In a move that can only be described as a total disaster, her attorneys tried to submit a secretly recorded phone call as a smoking gun. The recording was made by a filmmaker named Claire Ayub, who wasn't even involved in the current movie. She had worked on an old project and claimed she was treated poorly, but the way she went about proving it was a legal nightmare. She secretly recorded a call with an executive from Wayfarer Studios without his knowledge or consent. In the state of California, that isn't just a sneaky move. It is a direct violation of two-party consent laws. They tried to win a case by breaking the law, and the judge was not impressed.